regardless of the outcome. Boost the positive energy without one. Sorry about the jab, I'm on a holy field. I'm bearing fruit, but demons try to eat them like Yoshi meals. I pissed them off the Batman like Falcone deals. Jungle full of predators, I know how Mowgli feels. So I got the fire, refuse to live in fear. I can spot suppliers, eating fresh rolls.
Oh yeah, welcome to episode 253 of the Permaculture Pimpcast, where PIMP stands for Permaculture is My Passion. The only Pimpcast on planet Earth where we discuss permaculture, preparedness, and practical living. So glad, look, this is an impromptu kind of episode, and I'm so glad my guest was able to come on tonight because I am a fan, and guess what? You guys are going to be also. Before we get into all that, this episode, as always, brought to you by Hickory Ridge Soap from twooldcrowshomestead.com. Turn that simp into a pimp. Bam! Heaven's Harvest, 10% off with promo code PERMA. Handle all your preparedness needs out there. Anything you can't source, go check out Heaven's Harvest. Plus, they got some ballin' seeds. And remember, when we did that little experiment on YouTube, we were batting 1,000. Those seeds came, every last one of them came up. So that is extremely rare. So check out Heaven's Harvest if you need any of those right now. Of course, you won't be probably planting most of them right now, but it wouldn't be a bad thing to have on hand. If you want to tip a pimp, do it over there on the Fountain app. Listen to all your podcasts over there, even triple up the speed. And if you want to drop a derivation of Bitcoin on a playa, you know where to do it. Do it on the Fountain app. And also Redemption Shield. Oh, yeah. Y'all, you know how big I'm in the grounding. And I am G'd up from the feet up. Every single place around this house. In fact, you roll up in here, you think it was Grounding Central 101 because there's a grounding. Look, my feet right now are on this grounding mat every single time I'm in this room. The only thing I don't have right now are my the glasses I normally wear, those BCGs, those birth control glasses, which basically knock out all the blue light. So, Michelle, if you're listening, if you can grab my glasses, could you please bring them up here to the studio if you are, in fact, listening, because that's the one thing I forgot to bring in here. Anyway, 10% off with promo code PERMA. And finally, EMP Shield, $50 off with promo code PERMA. Look, y'all, I'm a 27-year IBEW journeyman electrician. Been doing this stuff a long, long time. And when I reached out, remember, there's not an advertiser on this show that reached out to me. I reach out to 100% of them because I got to be able to know that what I'm telling you is legit. And check this out. Okay, so you may or may not come across an EMP shield or an EMP, but you know what your highest likelihood of problems are? Lightning strikes. And this thing, if anything gets past your EMP shield on your house, they even got them for your vehicles and stuff. Anything gets past it, they're going to cover you for 25 G's. That's what I'm talking about. So before we get into the guest, I want to do all the housekeeping up front, y'all. And I don't want my advertisers to get upset with me, but I got to let you know about some things that are coming up because some of these, like this episode you're listening to right now, are a little bit of impromptu, but you got to know about them because I've been talking about community a bunch lately and how much we need to build it and how deficient I've been. So anyway, this pig processing class that I'm going to be doing tomorrow and the next day down at Sow the Land. Thank you so much, Homestead Honey. This pig processing class that I'm going to be doing tomorrow, it's all filled up. So for all the people that reached out saying, hey, man, I really wish I could get in. Sorry, you'll have to wait till the next one. And it's going to be a minute. But I may have something coming up with Ben and Denise at Renewed Homestead. All right, coming up November 22nd. I'm sure a lot of people out here, especially in this audience, probably thinks that's a little bit of an auspicious date. November 22nd, 1963. What happened then? Oh, yeah, they smoked Kennedy in Dealey Plaza. So on that very same day, Uncle Mud's going to be up here at Mandala Springs Community Center, and he's going to be doing a class on rocket stoves. And yeah, that's something we definitely want to know about, especially with all these tiny homes. In fact, my guest is probably going to speak a little bit about that. Also, November 23rd, the following day, she's got a class coming up. I'm going to let her talk a little bit about it. It's going to deal with mushrooms and something I'm woefully deficient in. So I'm going to get my training on as well. And then finally, November 30th. Yeah, November 30th, we're going to have a homestead meetup, and that's going to be out in Burnsville. Now, I told you before that it was going to be somewhere else. Well, that place fell through, had some problems, but it turned out Ben and Denise over at Renewed Homestead came in like a couple of superheroes and basically saved the day. So we got an even better location, but the star of the show is going to be Chef Shane because he's showing up, and this event's going to go from 10 in the morning, I think, till 4 in the afternoon. Look, for all the people out there looking to put your mutual assistance group together or just want to go commiserate with a bunch of other people that are in the same place, well, it's going to be at 15 Cane River Church Road, and that's in Burnsville, North Carolina, and that is going to be November 30th. I'll cover it in subsequent podcasts and everything, but I want y'all to know about all this stuff because we really need to get together and start putting our crews together. Starting, that's basically, I'm going to be out there, and I'm sure a number of you are going to be out there. You're going to mingle. There's no rock stars. There's no nothing like that. There may be just a brief class on communications because so many of us basically fell short on communication during this whole disaster. So we're going to focus on that stuff. Well, right off the bat, I want to thank everybody for coming in on the chat, and I want to thank my guest, who I had the great honor of, before I bring her on, I want to tell you how I came across her trail, y'all, because, folks, I've been praying that the Lord just put the right people in my path and remove me from the ones and extract those people from my life who are not doing good, that I shouldn't be around. Maybe aren't bad people, but maybe not wonderful for me. And I've also prayed that the good Lord put wonderful people in my path. Well, check this out. One of, and I wish I knew who it was, y'all, because basically it's gone from my email right now. Somebody sent me this link, and it had and by the way, folks, if you send me a video and if there's a relevant part of that video I need to watch, please do me a favor and tell me the time mark that I need to start watching. Whoever sent this to me didn't actually do that. And so I watched the whole thing. She was about 2 minutes in, and I was hooked. And then by the time it was all said and done, I was like, I don't know how or way. I wrote on the video, it's her latest video. I wrote on there my contact information, like, get a hold of me. I have got to talk to you. Because when I heard her go through and she's talking about, and hopefully we get into some of this stuff here in a minute, I was like, okay, this is jaw dropping. She lives in my area, and what she's in here dropping are like tactical nukes of information that everybody ought to know about. And it's also a big help that she's also living this lifestyle as well, that she's not just into social permaculture, but she's a legit permaculture designer. And man, I feel lucky to have her on this show. With that said, I'm going to bring on my guest, Steffanie. How you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here. The funny thing on the backside of that story is I don't know how it happened, but at the very same time I was reaching out to you, you sent a message to I guess it was our website, through our website. Michelle sent it on to me, and I'm like, that name looks familiar because your name is not spelled in the typical way that Steffanie is. It's with 2 F's. So it's hard to forget. And then I was like, hold on, I think this is the same chick I just watched. And then sure enough, I go over there, and then here it is, you reaching out to me at the very same time I'm reaching out to you. I sent you a text message and a voicemail, and you got back with me the next day. So, wow, it's a joy to have you here. So, Steffanie, like every other superhero out there, and you seem to be one to me, why don't you give everybody a little bit of background on you? You also have a pretty successful YouTube channel as well. Tell everybody, first of all, where they can find you, and give them a little bit of background on you before we get into it.
Yeah, thank you for having me. And, you said you were praying for the right people to come in your life, and I was too, because, and I'm sure we can get into this a little bit in our conversation, but it is hard to find people you align with that are out doing the work here and know who to trust. And so someone had sent me a podcast interview of you over, I believe his name was Justin's channel. And I was going through his channel and saw you, and I was like, oh my gosh, Billy, we need to be friends. And so God was doing his work. But I'm with the Aeroponic Tower channel, and I started my channel. I've been into preparedness for many years. I got into it in 2012 and 2014, like that 2-year period. The Lord was just really exposing a lot of things to me and helping me to open my eyes and see what's really going on in this world. And I got into preparedness, and part of that was growing my own food because I do have a lot of concerns about the things that are happening with our food systems, and the things that are coming with our food systems. And so I got into it back then. When we moved here, we ended up selling everything we owned. We were living that American dream, big house, big cars, boats, all the things. And we felt like it was just robbing us of our joy. So we sold everything, left Florida, lived in our camper, and traveled. And in 2019, the Lord just told me something's coming. It was the summer of 2019 that you need to go find a house and find it quick. And we went and looked at 2 houses. One was abandoned, and then this place, and bought our little cabin. And then we know what happened after that. So I went right back to what I've always known, and that's growing food. The problem was there was a lot of things, and I don't know if you remember these, going on with the compost back in 2020, 2021.
Oh,
Yeah, and it was like tainted with all these forever chemicals. And I had spent so much money getting compost down in Weaverville, the town over. And I laid it out, and it was full of plastics because he was taking, basically, somebody was donating compost in feed bags, and they were just grinding the bags with the compost. And so my garden was littered with all these plastics, and that's how I got into aeroponics. I just knew I had to replace the grocery store, and part of permaculture solutions are like using the space you have to the best ability and keeping your food close and in your zone. So I got into aeroponics and got my food forest back up, and here we are. We've been here 6 years.
It's funny you bring that thing up in as far as the bag soil or the people that have bought compost. If anybody hasn't watched it, there's a documentary out there called Biosludged. Mike Adams put it out years ago. And yeah, I mean, a lot of folks, in his case, it was called Dillo Dirt, if I remember correctly from that documentary. But even the stuff in the bag, Steffanie, we went out there. My wife, she's basically a stone's throw away from being a consultant for Dr. Elaine Ingham. And I'm also a lab tech myself. But the truth of it is, every single thing we've looked under the microscope, every single bit of it, there is not a single bit of compost out there ever since COVID started that is worth 2 dead flies. I mean, they ought to be paying you to take this stuff away. And so you've gotten some of that tainted soil. Real quick, I mean, how did you deal with that? I mean, how did you extract it? What did you do? Did you bioremediate it in place?
No. So our land is a lot of forest anyway. So I only had one section that had sun. So I moved to aeroponics and hydroponics, and then I built food forest perimeters around the other parts of our property. So that area where I put the bad compost is still just open right now. My hopes is over time it'll clean itself up, but I would like to discuss bioremedies too as well. So
sure. Yeah. So let me ask you, okay, so like me, you were in a place that was barely. We lost a tree and we lost power, and there was a lot of shady things that went on at the same time. The storm had already gone past for 2 hours before we lost power, and then all of a sudden we lose power 2 hours after the thing went by. You're in a place where you were hit considerably. I mean, in fact, I've done a lot of volunteer work over in your place. You're in Marshall. I'm in Mars Hill. They basically border one another, for those that don't know. Talk to me about how this storm unfolded at your place, because there's a lot of things that have happened since, and I'm going to call you a whistleblower in this. I've had a number of whistleblowers on here, whether it was my son or Bear Independent, and I'm talking to a number of others, but walk me through how this storm went down in your neck of the woods.
yeah, and some of it I had forgotten until I redid this YouTube. I made a YouTube, I think on day 18 or something, and it was a recap of the first couple of days, and it reminded me of all the weird things that had happened that just didn't align with this storm. So we are 4 miles from downtown Marshall, and we are on the side where you have to go over the bridge. So there's 2 bridges to get to us from Marshall area. Otherwise you have to go out to like the Leicester area. And so when I came home from the gym Thursday morning, our bridge, like the island was already flooded over there. Do you remember that? Like the pre-storm.
Oh, yeah.
And I was at the gym and I was like, what is this storm that's happening?
You mean the one the day before, right?
Yeah, the day before.
Yeah.
Like Wednesday, the day before the storm. So the storm hit us on Friday. I was at the gym. I was like, why is everything flooded? What is this? What is that? What is this? Because it wasn't the hurricane. So I came home Thursday, and then my husband got home by 2, and he said they're evacuating the city. they think the water is going to breach the bridge. And we were just like, oh, okay, you know, the water's gotten up pretty high before. We didn't think much about it. And we lost power Wednesday. So it's interesting. You lost power after the storm. We lost power before the storm. It came back on. We got it back on. It went out Thursday again. And then we had it Friday morning, and I slept on the sofa Thursday night because this hurricane was supposed to hit us. I don't know if you remember. It was supposed to hit us Thursday, like Friday in the morning hours at 2 a.m. And it was going to go up through Atlanta and sideswipe us and turn. And so we live in the forest. And I was like, I'm just going to sleep on the sofa and make sure, you know, everything's safe. I just wanted to kind of keep ears and eyes on things. And all night it was completely calm. And so we got up the next day and I was looking and everything was still calm. And then I looked on my phone and realized it was coming up through South Carolina and wasn't even going to hit us until I think it was like 2 p.m. when it finally hit us. Is that right?
Yeah, that's about right.
It was already like 12 hours off schedule. It was off track. So it was really confusing. And then we lost power at about like an hour before the storm hit. So we went downtown. Our lives are downtown. My husband's office is downtown. Our church is downtown. You know, that's where we shop. That's where we do everything. So we're very integrated into our community, and all of that's gone right now. But we went down at 5 p.m. just to see like what's going on with this storm. And this was after the hurricane. So 5 p.m. on Friday. And that's when we realized like half of our town, we couldn't tell at that time because the water was so high. We didn't realize that about a third of the buildings just didn't exist anymore at this point. But you could smell the chemicals. We got sprayed and I told my kids like get off the bridge because you could tell it was just loaded with chemicals. The island was full of debris and houses. Gas tanks and gas drums and propane drums were coming down by the hundreds at this point. It was wild. Big, huge diesel tank, you know, those massive ones came and got stuck under the bridge and it looked like toilet paper. It had just crumbled. It was incredible.
Yeah, but as this thing unfolded, there was a lot of weird things. And I'm glad you brought that up because before this whole storm came, we couldn't understand it because it was like, how are we getting hit? And I noticed this the last time we had a major storm come through. First of all, they're chemtrailing the daylights out of it. I mean, right before. Yeah. Just like this storm that just came in, well, this rain that wasn't even in the forecast. Yesterday they were chemtrailing like nobody's business around here. Mm-hmm. And then you could almost set your watch to it. Yep. Whenever they do that, I can guarantee you some weird anomaly that was not predicted will be unfolding the following day, every single time without question. Well, the same thing happened there. Is like, okay, we're getting these torrential downpours, and I'm like, the hurricane it's not even supposed to be here. Mm-hmm. I remember Biltmore Village was already flooded, and I'm like, this is making zero sense. And of course, being a devotee of Dame Wigington's work and he being a friend of mine, I'm like, okay, something stinks here. Something ain't making sense. Yeah. And then when the actual hurricane came through, yeah, we've had storms about as bad, at least in my area. It was windy. It was, we only lost a single tree and it was one I needed to cut down anyway. We got some damage to the house. But outside of that, there was a whole lot of weird things that didn't make sense. I mean, did not make sense at all. And to this day, I'm not even sure. When I brought this up to some of the people on some of the recovery sites like Nanostead and some of the others, to this day, a lot of these people are reluctant to even have this conversation as if it didn't even happen.
Yeah.
And apparently, did you notice any, before I move on, did you notice any chemtrailing or anything like it before that storm came, or were you even paying attention?
I wasn't paying. I videoed before and I was gardening. And I remember in the video when I went back and watched it, when I was editing, I was like, what is this weather? I thought the hurricane was coming Friday. And because it came out of nowhere, that weird flooding storm that just dumped so much rain. So yeah, I don't remember if there were chemtrails, but I do remember it was out of nowhere and nobody knew where it came from or had any explanation how we got this like really big storm.
Well, if you look at the work of Dane Wigington, he basically shows that, okay, in the chemtrails, and this is for a lot of the folks out there, if you haven't seen it before, check out the interview that I did with Dane Wigington, and you're going to find out that before this storm even got here, for all the people that say we don't know how to control the weather, go well, check out Operation Popeye that we did ever since Vietnam, Operation Cirrus. I mean, look, it's declassified. This isn't even conspiracy theory anymore. This is just straight up murder, in my view. Anyway, what happened was they went out there, laid down all these particles in the basically cloud seeded a lot of stuff into this storm, and then using NexRad radar towers, they were able to take that storm. If you look on the west side of this storm, you see those NexRad towers lighting up like a Christmas tree.
Yep.
And none on the east side. So they were steering this thing. And then, of course, as you well know, Steffanie, I mean, we had the equivalent. Dane told me 2 years of all the water that goes over Niagara Falls, 2 years in 2 hours here. And that is not even counting the storm that happened the days prior. So this place was already, it was set up for a, for the disaster that unfolded. Well, it's still unfolding right now. And I want to go back to one of your, I want to go back to your latest video, the one that you put out there, the one that got my attention, where you were basically saying this looks like a giant land grab.
Mm-hmm.
And I was absolutely captivated. Can you help me qualify that? Because I know it. Some other folks know it, but a lot of others, you brought up some information there that a lot of people might want to know about. Like, for example, you talked about some of the rules with, like with FEMA's new rules with the acquisition, elevation, and mitigation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So why don't you tell everybody from your point of view, what has unfolded since that time? You said it was a land grab, and I thought you brought the receipts. So why don't you tell us exactly, I mean, spell it out for the audience here.
Yeah. So, and a lot of us have thought it was a land grab from the beginning, but we haven't heard a lot about what was going to happen. And there are areas in the mountains, small sections where people haven't been letting anybody in because they're concerned about this, like real concerns. And so it was officially announced a couple of days ago, right before I made that video, actually. So I don't know how many days now, maybe 5 or 6, that FEMA is going to come in. And so prior to this, which is interesting, and you've seen this, I'm sure, there's no boots on the ground here. The people who are helping, people ask me what organization I'm with, and I'm like, no, none. I just happen to live down the street, and this is what we're doing. And I had someone today drive 9 hours to bring us donations and some money to fund some of the things we're doing. And that's who I'm seeing out there. I'm not seeing these organizations. We had the National Guard in for a little bit mucking things, but they're pretty much gone at this point. So we haven't seen FEMA except for at the library. And that even took a long time. I don't even think they were in town until day 15 or something. And denying people all this $750. It's still going on. But they finally announced we're going to do something for the housing, because we kept asking, why is no one helping the people in the housing? And they have come in and said officially that they are going to have a new 100-year flood zone. And the qualifications for a 100-year baseline flood zone is that there's a 1% chance it can flood in that area. And so if it's already flooded, anything this flood touched they have to go 2 feet above that is the new qualification. So if there's a 1% chance it can flood, which it already did, so we know it can, we now have to go 2 feet above that. And so they're saying they can buy your land at its value. Yeah, right. They can help you rebuild and lift your property if it meets that criteria, or they can help you fix your property through mitigation if you meet the criteria and your house is high enough, which doesn't make any sense because none of them are going to be high enough anyway. So that right there tells us they just gave themselves permission to take enormous amounts of land, because Billy, some of these areas that were affected, I've heard in some areas, over in the Tow River, it was over 40 feet, because as it comes through those narrower valleys, it was going over 40 feet and taking out everything along the way. My house is kind of up on a hill. So people forget, people don't just live on the water. They live tapered up the mountains. And so it took all of those properties. And so it just gave them access to the waterways, which is so important. So that was the recent information that we just found out. And, the the other problem with that is when they rezone. So if these people had mortgages, and I just talked to someone tonight who went through this with FEMA, and she said the problem was when they came to give her her new house and to help her mitigate the situation, they don't get rid of your old mortgage. They were trying to give her a loan that would only have a 1% interest. So they were helping her out, right? But it went on top of the money she already owed. So basically her mortgage was, yeah. So you still have to pay what you already owed. They're not wiping away. They're going to give you another loan on top of the loan you already had.
Oh,
and then,
oh my goodness. But yeah, well, somehow we got all the money in the world for Israel, and we got all the money in the world for Ukraine. We got all the money in the world to drop bombs all over this planet, but we don't have money for this. And you're wow. I didn't know that. That's astonishing.
Yeah, she just rolled into town for 9 hours and they drove this way because she's been through it and she's experienced, the hardships of losing a house. And so they drove 9 hours to come bring us a check and some mattresses that we needed. But the other issue too, and my brother went through this in a flood zone in Florida after a hurricane. When if you own your house outright, you can say no to FEMA, right? But if they rezone it that it's not safe for building, you can't ever rebuild. So you get bullied into selling that way. And then if you happen to be in an area where they say, okay, you can rebuild, but you're going to need to go 2 feet higher than this. If you don't own your house outright and you can't do it for cash, then you can't get insurance. So you've got the issue of people are going to have to comply with these new rules unless they own their houses outright and can live without insurance.
No, I think we're past. I know I'm past the point of compliance. I mean, I don't obey unjust laws, and you're not just going to come in here. I mean, this is so absurd. This is what they've done at the Yangtze River in China. This is exactly what they did. Exactly what they did to run those poor Chinese folks out of there and then just basically stuff them in the cities. And, you also talked about in your video about Agenda 2020 and 2030.
Yeah.
I mean, in your judgment, how does all this kind of comport into it? Because I see the overlap.
Yeah. And I was calling it Agenda 2020 and someone reminded me it was actually called Agenda 2021. And it goes from the 21st century to 2099. And it's the plan for all the changes that are coming. But a lot of people have commented that, aren't in alignment with what you and I believe and some of your followers believe and have said, well, good, they shouldn't be allowed to rebuild in flood zones. It's safer for the environment, all of that. But people have been living near the water since the beginning of time because that's how you care for yourself. That's how you have independence and can stay alive. And so if you apply that mentality, then basically anybody who lives in a tornado zone should be losing their properties, anybody oceanfront. And that's how they drive people into the smart cities. When we allow these, rules to change and they start running people out, it opens the floodgates.
You got a question here I think is very pertinent. Can the local Madison County Planning Board fight to stop the rezoning? Has anybody looked into any of that?
I don't know of anybody looking into it. I do know Madison County, and I don't know if you've experienced this, we have friends here, right? I think some of our local leadership is on our side, but they also are big government too. But then I was over in Yancey County. They're not even cleaning up over there. We dropped 2 sheds to some people on, I think, the Pigeon River over there. Mm-hmm. It is not cleaned up at all. And they were actually told that they are now an off-grid situation and that they're not running power or water back down to those people who are on the river right there. And I was just totally shocked at the neglect. I guess it's because it's not Marshall's a town and our town was affected. So it's very much in the face of everybody. But in some of these smaller areas where it's not, they are just really being abandoned in this situation and they're going to lose their property is what's, those areas tend to be a little bit lower income. And when you already are strapped and you're in a bad situation, it's easy to take advantage of people.
And this is absolutely dreadful. And the reason why I want to get you on here, along with everybody else, it's already being lost in America's zeitgeist. We live in the United States of amnesia, and what's happened here is already not even nobody. It's still, there are people suffering in the most massive ways, as you well know. Yeah. And you're doing some really awesome yeoman's work to try to help a lot of these folks out. And by and large, most of the country is either my best friend up in Massachusetts didn't even know that what happened here until a month later.
Mhm.
I mean, here we are this far removed, and they've had no information basically in the national media. I guess this isn't newsworthy.
Yeah, that's what the people who just came in told me. And I said that wrong. It's not Yancey County because that's Burnsville. And they are actually boots on the ground, like the locals there. It's wherever Clyde is. What county is that?
Oh, shoot. I do not know.
Yeah, it's that
what-
area that I've just now been to for the first time. And that's the area that's really they're giving people a real hard time over there, the victims. But the people that came in today said the same thing. It's not on the news. Like, it's not being talked about. When they hear about Hurricane Helene, it's all Florida, 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 which is shocking to me. And I don't watch the news, but we're so in it here. And it's like our lives. Like, every day, this is what we do. So it's unbelievable when someone tells me, like, they're saying the death count is 200. I mean, I've heard more personal stories, like personal face-to-face stories of friends who were in charge of looking for bodies and finding them. That math doesn't add up. It doesn't even come close.
No, from the accounts that I'm getting from people like Bear Independent and a number of other reliable sources, I mean, we're talking thousands that are likely perished, you know.
I have said it's probably close to 10,000. If you do the math on each area that was affected, just the percentage that I know, like from our town, based on the percentage of people, and you take that to Yancey County and all the other counties, there's just no way. It's got to be way in the thousands.
I mean, in fact, Bear was telling me that, you know, they have cadaver dogs, which, by the way, you know, they're telling us, this came out the other day. They're basically telling us, hey, there are no toxins in the water or anything like that. Even though we had 10 cadaver dogs that are already dead. There's somebody out there saying, oh, these boots that were black boots over in Marshall that were coming back green over from Nanostead. I've been working over there. I know about this. Mm-hmm. And then the 50 to 60 people that I know of that were hospitalized for some of the stuff that had happened, you know, not long after. So, but somehow they're telling us, oh, there's the latest things that have come out, and they're using some sources that people locally would trust, are saying that the levels, they're a little bit high, but they're within range of what's acceptable around here.
Yeah.
Are you believing that? Because you were right down there on the river. I mean, what experiences do you have as far as interfacing with this thing?
Yeah, well, and, you know, I read some of the things they posted, and it was like, we tested for 133 chemicals and 2 came back. And, you know, it's easy to pick what you test, obviously. We know a plastics plant went in just above us with way more than 133 chemicals just in that facility alone. We've got septic tanks. I saw hundreds. I have videos of just all day long drums of gasoline and propane and the diesel tank that came through over and over and over just all day. So when we were out there initially, like I said, it splattered our face, and I could tell it smelled of chemicals immediately. After the hurricane, I met a gentleman that same evening when I was walking up, and he had been splashed in the face pretty significantly and had burns. It looked like he was sunburned from the water. After that, we did, you know, I mean, we did it's our community. Everything's down there. So we were digging knee deep in this mud, knowing kind of the risks that might be involved. We didn't have any immediate rashes and things, but we were geared up pretty good. Not PPE, but like we have waterproof hiking pants and good boots and things like that. But since then, we have had an illness in the house that was very, very bizarre, to the point where I do natural remedies for our home, but this one was a little bit weird. So I just went to put some eyes on it, and it got to the point where like a doctor came in and then her PA, because they were both shocked by like what it was. They were like, can I call someone else in here to look at this? And was just shocked. The mouth was like completely swollen and just lots of things going on that weren't normal. We've had illnesses amongst other people in the community that I work closely with, a lot of GI stuff that's not going away. So 3 weeks, 4 weeks, GI issues. These are people that are exposed daily to the dust. So maybe not so much in the mud every single day, but it didn't rain for how long? We didn't have a single chemtrail, and it didn't rain for, I think we're on day 48. And today was our first real rain. We've had some mists, but it's been in the air so thick that you feel dirty, even if you're not in town. So we've had a lot of weird illnesses coming up from that. I met a woman who just drove in to donate some things, and she wouldn't get out of her truck where we were at because she said she had gotten out at the last location and had rashes all over her ankles from being exposed to the mud that was in the location she was at. So there's definitely some concern with the mud for sure.
Oh, but no. The officials out there are telling us, there's only been a couple of things to pop up. And sadly, a lot of people in these groups are buying this stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, just to kind of let everybody know right now, I'm not revealing the results yet because I don't yet have them. In fact, I was going to put out the video this Sunday. We've had to find a reliable lab. We've had to reach out. I mean, folks, you would be astonished if you knew the full extent of how hard it's been to A, find a reliable lab, and B, to get people that could do this work. So we just happened to find, like I said, I'll go into greater detail when the time's right, but got an environmental engineer along with his crew out here last Sunday. They were out alongside the river getting samples in 3 different locations alongside the French Broad River. And this is a guy that's got 25 years experience doing this. He says, look, I haven't sent it off to the lab, but I can tell you right now, if I can see it and I can smell it to this extent, how many weeks later, I don't even want to start thinking about it. And that was the water samples he was getting at the time. And then he's also got some soil samples. Well, this is going to cost a lot of money for us to get these things tested, but it is extraordinary what I'm suspecting is going to come back. But here it is. They test it, like my wife said, a couple of, weeks later or whatever after what happened up there in Ohio. Like, this is hot off the presses right now. Michelle sent it to me. An expert, basically EPA officials admit Norfolk Southern lied about the air safety after that train derailment up there in Ohio.
Yeah.
You think the same doggone thing ain't unfolding here right now? I mean, when you're having these anecdotal experiences and then, okay, take all the other people I know that are having problems too. Some of them in some of these communities very close to the river. That's gospel to me. Mm-hmm. When you add it all up, and I'm supposed to believe, nothing's happening. That polecat Governor Cooper came through saying, everything's okay. Well, okay, where are the tests? Where do they come from? Well, guess what? We got stuff off to the lab right now. We'll have the results hopefully here in about another week. And then I got a guy coming in this weekend with a mobile lab who's about to go out here and find out what's going on exactly. So we're going to get to the bottom of this stuff, folks. And I know I sound like a broken record on this, but I'm not letting it go. There is no way I'm going to let them get away with this. And Steffanie, judging by what I see, I don't think you are either.
No, and Cooper came in and he came into Marshall, and this is where it frustrates me, even with some of the locals, that they see what's going on firsthand. They're being denied their FEMA, they're going through hoops, and they're still like backing some of these things, and I just don't understand it. But he came in and said that saying that the mud is toxic is causing harm. Do you remember that article? It's something ridiculous, like when you say that it's derailing the morality of the people on the ground. Okay. Yeah. Once I see you knee deep in this mud, because we're on the ground knowing the risk and knowing there is a risk, to say that, I just couldn't even believe he would come in here and say that. So yeah. Sorry. There was a chemistry teacher over at the high school that I spoke with, and she was telling me they're noticing when people were starting to clean with bleach, they were having chemical reactions where there was smoke coming out in the buildings. Like, they were starting to get to the cleaning process, and there were some fumes and things. And she was just telling me one day when I walked in, and she knew I was clearly out there in the field. And she said, just be careful if you smell anything sweet, don't go near it. If you don't add any cleansing chemicals to any of this stuff. So I found that to be really interesting too.
I got to ask you, do you know anybody? Because I still have yet to find a single person who's actually gotten this 750. I mean, it's a slap in the face if you ask me. Do you know anybody that's actually gotten the $750 and this temporary unemployment? I was just at my chiropractor's office yesterday, and the receptionist there lives out in Hot Springs, and she's like, she says, my son was working 3 jobs, lost all 3 jobs. And I'm sure you know a lot of people who've basically lost their entire livelihood. I don't know if a single person has gotten unemployment yet. And I don't know if a single person has gotten 750. How about you?
No. And, I was just out night before last. So, we're turning sheds into temporary housing for people who are in tents. And at the location where we're building them out is also a distribution hub. And this guy came in and he just had this look in his face. And I could tell, like, he was just really desperate. And I was like, hey, can I help you with something? And he was like, do you have any cook stoves here, like camping stoves? My camper's out. And there was a lot of chaos going on. And I was getting ready to leave to go deliver one of our shed homes. And I was like, I will get you one. I know someone's got one in a truck where I'm going. I'll text you, give me your number. I'll meet you later. So I got him one. We got him a new oven. He's in a camper and his home was destroyed. And he's in a camper from the 80s. It's not functioning well. So I rolled back in that night to meet him because I didn't want anybody to steal it because they're also stealing all the donations that are good. I don't know if you know that at the distribution centers, and ours is pretty open. So I met him there and he just went right into that. He can't get the 750. He's tried. He doesn't understand why some people can get it that weren't harmed at all. They didn't lose their job. They didn't lose anything. He worked in downtown Marshall. So he doesn't have a job. His home was destroyed by the hurricane. I don't think by floods. I think it was more from tree damages. And he's got no income and no, what did you say, workman's comp kind of income coming in. And, just was like, I don't understand what's going on and why no one's helping us. And where's all this money? Like, we keep hearing of all these billions that FEMA's spending and the concert that was raised $25 million. And as a boots on the ground, and you've probably seen this, like, it's not in the hands of the people. And it's not, it's us. It's like neighbors and people donating stuff is all I see everywhere I go.
That's the only thing I've seen. I've not seen a single case, and I don't know of a single person who's actually gotten that 750.
Yeah.
And when I was hearing some of the stuff that my son was telling me about, he was working with Grindstone Ministries, and he was saying it was a bunch of DEI hires out there, and they could not be bothered. First of all, I haven't seen a single FEMA truck or a FEMA person anywhere around here at all.
No.
I'm not saying they haven't been there, but I haven't seen them. Not a single one, not even when I've gone to Asheville. He was saying that they were telling these people, well, go on into Asheville. And they're like, well, it's easier for us to go to Tennessee. Well, you can do that, but it's going to be a big problem for us. And it was like, these people just could not even be hired. And then of course we hear about that thing. If somebody had a Trump flag out there, or you suspect that they were part of or if they were fans of Trump or whatever, just bypass that house. This is, I don't know what it takes to get this country to wake up. I don't know what it takes to get folks to realize this. These people at this point, this is murder.
Yeah.
We got people that are here homeless on the streets, not getting any of the, like I told you, the receptionist friend of mine at the office at the chiropractor, she said her son had 3 doggone jobs, lost all 3, and can't get anybody to get with him about unemployment.
Yeah, and that was the same
over and over again.
And here's 2 more stories on that. So this gentleman, and it's the second one I've heard from, they didn't actually get the money, but my other friend too, who has Airbnbs, they were also told if they get the money, because there's more than one person in the house, they don't both get the money. They have to split it, 350. Did you know that?
Oh.
And here's another interesting one. So the place where we dropped the shed, I was talking to her and she applied, and they said they sent the check to the post office because they don't have a mailbox, and she went to get it and someone had picked it up and taken the check. And so now she's having to go through all these hoops, and she's like, I can't get the check because they want me to fax anything. I don't have a fax. These people don't even have a car that's functioning or a phone hardly that works. It's just a phone that was gifted to them with some hours. And so we're like, who took her FEMA check from the post office?
This is ridiculous. I mean, I do want to point out, and you brought up something. I wasn't going to bring it up, but you did, so I'm gonna run with it. I want to go back a little bit. Have you noticed that by and large, ever since this, I'm going to call it a manufactured disaster began, ever since it began, have you ever seen bluer skies around here?
Mm-mm. They've been
So
crazy
you do.
blue up until 2 days ago.
Yep.
Yeah, I posted on my Instagram stories. I was like, "Oh, I haven't seen that in a while." And then yesterday it was super heavy, like you said, and then today we have rain. But yeah, no, blue skies, completely blue.
I can't even recall the last time I've seen blue for this many days. And then the moment they go ahead and start dropping the chemtrails again, here we go. Got rain the next day. And Dane told me this would happen. Dane Wigington said, it's not uncommon that after they hit a place really, really hard, they basically lay off the chemtrails for a few weeks. And I don't know if that's a way of saying, yeah, we'll just let you look at we'll give you something, But all of a sudden, here it is. We're seeing blue skies, and then all of a sudden we get chemtrails, and then here we are all over again. So we get rain. We need the rain. I'll be the first to say that, but does it seem a little bit strange to you? We live in a temperate rainforest, but we don't have any rain for a month on end.
Oh yeah, I've been saying that. Yeah, in my videos, I'm like, we're on day 32, no rain. Day 35, no rain, because it's not. I mean, this is our rainy season too. You know that.
Yes.
The fall, it actually rains. We have a tin roof and live in a cabin, and it rains so hard here in the fall that it actually scares me because it's just so loud. And we've had none of that, just nothing. And I think, it makes the dust a bigger problem, and maybe that's part of it. I'm not sure. So.
Well, Steffanie, I could wax on philosophically about all the awful things that are going on around here, but I want to talk about some of the positive things that I know you're doing and that's part of a reason why as soon as I saw your video, I was like, okay, I got to subscribe to her YouTube channel. And folks, you ought to as well, because she's doing fantastic work. You are doing some incredible things, but you kind of hit on it a little bit. Why don't you tell everybody what you're doing? Because it's not as if you weren't touched by this and your family as well, but you're doing some pretty awesome work in terms of outreach and what you're doing. Why don't you tell everybody what that is?
Well, thank you. So when this happened, it was like every day there was something to do. So we were mucking buildings downtown. Our church was going here to do something. And I ended up on that road you were talking about, Rollins Road. And initially there was a gentleman there, I think he's in his 80s, and he had left his trailer that was being gutted because it was flooded pretty significantly. And when he was gone, somebody came in and stole his tools, like the last few things he had. So he was moving back to his property, and he was going to stay in a tent inside the home. And you know how unsafe that is, like the mold and so I just started thinking, like, there's got to be a better way. And the Lord put it on my heart. The next morning was like, get a shed, make a temporary house. So I went and did a fundraising on my Instagram. So many supported this cause. There were actually 4 homes we were going to do this with. Got a shed, decided, well, we might as well insulate it, might as well drywall it. Before we knew it, we were like in the tiny home business of getting people's sheds. And that area I tend to stay out of the bureaucratic zones. So it got a little bit bureaucratic in that area. And so I just moved on, and we just really started to do an outreach and find people in tents. And the reality is the housing crisis, it was already a housing crisis here, as you know, like housing was already a struggle. And it's going to take a very long time for people to get back into homes, if ever. And so we just decided, like, let's do this. We're now moving into where we've found most of the people who were living in tents that we know were in the situation that need to get out of them before the winter. And so we are moving into a situation where we're going to help a family get a shed home that's up to code. It's actually going to be really big. They have 4 young children. And what it does is, even though their land is family land that they're going to put it on, we don't know if the land is going to be taken away because of what's going on with FEMA. So this allows us to go back in and move the home if we have to. So if something something happens where they're not going to be able to stay on that property, at least they are going to have this home that's paid outright for, that can be picked up and transferred somewhere else if we have to do that. So that's what I've been doing. It just started with, God put the calling on my heart to help a man in a tent, and every day I want to quit. And then, we get blessings from it. And I'm like, no, we can do this. And now we're building houses. So I'm not sure how that happened, but here we are.
No, I'm right there with you. It's amazing how the Lord directs our steps in ways I never in a million years. I mean, I was pretty darn content living my life here on up in this holler, doing what I do.
Yeah.
Showing people how to permaculture, preparedness, practical living. And here I am. I found myself in the middle of doing this bioremediation. And I'm having some really hopeful conversations with some folks that I'm hoping to bring some awesome legit technology out there that can clean up a lot of this stuff and combine it with the compost that I'm already creating. So, man, I couldn't be more, I couldn't be more busy. Couldn't be more sleep deprived, but at the same time, I couldn't be more fulfilled with knowing that at least you're putting joy in my heart, knowing that there's folks like you out there that are doing yeoman's work, that are doing things that other folks just will not do or won't do. You and I were talking before we went live here that I've seen the polar opposite of both. I've seen some folks that were unaffected that basically, hey, it's not my problem, and I'll just go on about my business. And then I've seen other people that are giving the shirt off their backs.
Yeah.
I think your experience has been about the same, huh?
Yeah, it's interesting because there are people who are unaffected by this, who really are oblivious to what's going on. And it's hard to be out there. And I know like some people still don't have water and things like that, but there are people that just don't really even get it. And they believe the mainstream media. And I'm like, you live here. If you were to step outside your door and talk to one person out in these disaster zones, you would have a totally different perspective, because we can't deny what's really happening when you're talking face to face with these people and you hear story after story after story of, just the wrong that's been done and the neglect, and how like the only people helping are you and I and our neighbors that are here, our boots on the ground, or the people donating things. It's incredible.
Yeah. And then, like you said, you have people that are driving across country. I mean, my son came all the way from our place in Texas to come all the way out here to be able to, to work with Grindstone Ministries. Yeah. You have those people. I mean, there are people coming all the way from, good night. I can't even believe how far some folks have driven. In fact, I'm going to be meeting up with one this weekend that's coming all the way from, I don't even know, but it's on the other side of the country. Yeah. And people are still dropping things off. But the fear is that winter is coming upon us. And typical of most disasters, there's hands at first, and then you got about a month, and then the help drops off precipitously. And then you're left with basically the community that's still here, but there's still no outside help, still nothing going on. I just wonder if at the end of this thing that maybe we ought to just not pay taxes. I think, where's it going? Unless I'm going to move to a foreign country and decide to, start wars or whatever, then maybe I'll get some of my tax money back. But if you're a real life American citizen living right here, no help at all. No. And then, like you said, the most aggravating thing to me, you're saying the numbers could be about 10,000, and that's about what I'm hearing he's talking about. Oh, did I lose you?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And, just today I was on a call. There was a meeting, and I don't know the acronym, but there's a group that their job is to help organizations who are going to be a part of relief kind of come together and work side by side. Again, bureaucratic stuff that I don't get involved in, but I know like my church was there, and they have said that the long term, you want to know how long they said it's going to take to fix this? Any guess? Oh, you're
100 years. Sorry, I was muted.
That's okay. 8 to 9 years is our recovery period. So That just floored me when I heard that, because that, and it's not unbelievable, but it's unbelievable at the same time. And that was just a group like trying to grab the churches and the people who are going to be in it for the long term, because we know some of these organizations swooped in and did a bunch of good, and they left just as quick as they came in, and they aren't here anymore. And they've got big funding, and unfortunately a lot of people send their money to those big organizations, and they're not here anymore. Like they had helicopters and they were dropping things, and that was great, but they're not here helping the people who are homeless, jobless, moneyless, and all the other things. So
well, incredible people like yourself are doing that very same thing. Grandma's Gardening. Other people have asked this question too, so I'll address this right quick and then we'll get back to it. Why hasn't Dane Wigington's, I'm sorry, these glasses make it tough to read. Dane Wigington's organization developed an countermeasure skills for geoengineering. Well, it's really not his job to do that. You know who ought to be doing it? The people you're paying your taxes to. First of all, they ought not to be doing it. And second of all, it's not Dane's job, because the countermeasures in my book are basically Stinger missiles. Okay. I think anybody dropping chemicals out of the sky, unless it's a real vapor trail, I think they ought to be shot out of the sky. That's how I feel about it. But because what they're dropping is just downright poison. Mm-hmm. And what they're doing is changing our weather. And it's a screw job up one side and down the other, folks. And then it was just like Steffanie was saying. I mean, she's like the next town over, and she's observing the same doggone. I cannot remember a period of time where I've seen so many consecutive blue days. And I mean, like the bluest blue, like when I was a kid. You know, I'm almost 55 years old, you know, and I don't recall seeing skies like this for over 30 years. Yeah. So,
and it's interesting to me, like even locally, people who are super into nature and herbalism and all the things, they think it's a conspiracy that there's chemtrails. Like, how do we not have them for 45 days? There were no planes flying for 45 days. Like, I don't get it when there's X's in the sky, how you cannot see that, but I don't want to see it. I think then they have to take responsibility, and that's too hard.
No amount of evidence will shatter a faith consciously based on a lie.
Yeah.
That is the absolute truth. So, I mean, we've covered, man, I wish we had more time, but hey, you got a class coming up. It's more of an impromptu kind of class. Mm-hmm. You're wearing a lot of hats, and you're doing a lot of wonderful things, and you're doing a lot of incredible, great, wonderful things in this world. But you got a class coming up, a mushroom class, and I'm going to be one of your students. Yeah. Did you ever work that out or figure out exactly how you want to go about it?
Yeah, I'll create an event and drop you a link if you want to post it and share it. It'll have to be small, about 20 people. So my passion and my channel was always about growing food. That's just been my calling for a long time. Food security. I think what they're doing to our food with CRISPR technology and all the changes that are coming with lab cellular grown meat, it's all to take over control of the food, because if you control the food, you control the people, right? So my heart's in the food. And so I was a gardening channel, but I've also been into preparedness for many, many years. And so this situation opened the door for where the Lord just told me, like, it's time to share it all, like all the things that we've been putting in our home to just secure our homes for what might be coming. Because it seems like something's always coming these days, right? It's never ending. So one of the ways that I provide a complete protein, because we don't have a farm. And that's also my mission, is to help people who don't have a lot of land or who are in apartments or in smaller areas realize that they can grow an enormous amount of food in a very small space if they're willing to do the work and willing to change their diet and kind of get out of this processed food industry that we live in. So mushrooms are a complete protein. They're also medicine. There's so many medicinal benefits to eating and using mushrooms on a daily basis. So I grow a ton of them. And so North Spore, who I have a tight relationship with, I told him, hey, we got all these logs and we got all these people who need food security, and it sounds like we're going to need it for 8 to 9 years now. Can you send me some supplies? And they sent me massive boxes full of spawn. So we're going to get together and we're going to go through some logs and we're going to set up some food security for people. And then I can donate those to people as they need them when we set up these tiny homes, or keep them on our property. And it just gives us food to pass out in need when we need it.
So for anybody wanting to do this class, hey, you're going to have to leave a couple of shots. As soon as I told Michelle about what you were doing, she's like, okay, I'm there. So is this going to be through your website, through your YouTube, or
I'm going to do it in person. I want you to
as far as people being able to sign up, because you said there's only going to be only slots.
Yeah. If you're interested in attending live, so I'm in the Marshall area, we're going to have just a few spots. So shoot me an email at STEFFMOR8 and I can let you know if there's any spots available. So it's Steph with 2 F's, more, MOR8 at Gmail. It will be recorded though. We will film it and we'll talk about how to do your own mushroom logs, when to do them. Now is the time to do them. We want to be taking down the trees. Originally, I was hoping we would use the trees that are out and wasted. But the reality is the more I look around, most of them have touched the floodwaters, and we don't want to have any contact with food growing on logs that have touched the floodwaters. So I think what we're going to do is just take trees off the property here. And we want to take them when the leaves have fallen about 30%. So we're a little past that window, but we still have time to get it done. And it just rained. So my other hope is that by next weekend, I will have logs that are fruiting for people to really witness what that looks like. Because once we get these rains and this cool weather, the logs will pop off that I have already. But I will film it and make a YouTube.
Okay. Also, and for anybody that's interested, the cost for this is going to be
donations to the community. Whatever you want to donate to the cause of, building shed homes, or if they want to donate to your cause of remediation for the soil, that's what we'll do.
Well, I am looking forward to it. I know Michelle is as well, because honestly, all of us have our folks. This is part of that cross-pollination. Forgive the pun, but this is part of what I've been talking about forever and a day. I mean, this is one of those classes that I've been wanting to do in person for the longest time. Yeah, there's certain things you can get on YouTube, but it's kind of hard when you can work with an expert and see it 3-dimensionally, man, it's really hard to beat. I mean, so I'm really looking forward to meeting Steffanie in person and being able to learn from her and meet a lot of other folks out there as well. Every time you go to something like this, you always meet some fantastic people. So I'll make sure I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I'm excited for you to see the other ways we grow food here too, because you'll be shocked at how much food I grow in such a little. We have 13 acres, but only a small portion is cut out. And I essentially grow about 90% of my own food because I eat a plant-based diet. It's incredible what you can do if you really put the permaculture principles into place and get creative. So I'm excited for you to see some of that when you come as well.
Well, I'm definitely excited. Tell everybody one more time how they can get a hold of you and how to watch your YouTube videos.
Yeah, so my channel is the Aeroponic Tower channel.com. Hard to spell, but you can find me there, or you can email me at Steph with 2 F's, MOR 8 at gmail.com.
All righty. Well, thank you so much, Steph. Hey, and for the person who was out there asking, I saw it pop up. I mean, the comments are going through a little faster than I can see, and it's hard enough to see with these glasses on. But these are basically blue light blockers, and I wish I can't give you the name of these, and the reason why. In a nutshell, I make no bones about the fact that I'm a blood-bought soldier of Christ. And when I bought these glasses, they had a emblem on the side of them that were just a straight up satanic symbol. So I'm not going to tell you what brand they are. I'll try to find another one. And I went out there with my file and basically scraped it off of, had I known it was going to be on here, I wouldn't have bought them. There's some other brands out there, but hopefully I can remember to find out there's some other good, reliable brands out there. I think even Mike Adams recommended a pair, and you might be able to find it at Health Ranger. There's some other brands out there. You don't have to go with these highfalutin ones like the ones I'm wearing right now. So sorry if I missed so many comments out there, but y'all, thank you so much. Till next time, stay alert, stay alive.
They don't want an individual, just a carbon copy. True spitting that manicotti, yeah, I'm talking saucy. All they want to build is a prison world full of pet Tamagotchis. The kamikaze got me out of body like I'm Goku SS3. Woo! They want to push me to the center like a cell. They want to spin up at the center of the nexus, me. They want me to bow down, but I'm a warrior.